Welcome to another episode of Mr. Plumb's Thoughts. For this lesson, I wanted to address the question of, what's the deal with shifting garment standards in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Um, the sacred garment that's worn by members of the church has recently changed, becoming a little shorter, a little more immodest. This has caused some people to freak out a little bit. Some people think it's a sign of a fallen church. Others wonder why we wear it at all if it can change whenever the leaders want. But there is a reasonable explanation to those who investigate with an open mind and a heart. So I guess the first question is, what is the temple garment? Some of you watching this might not know what I'm talking about. So in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it's often called the garment of the holy priesthood. It's our temple garment. It's sacred underclothing worn at all times by members of the church, or by endowed members of the church. So endowed means that we have entered into the Lord's temple and made certain covenants to live life in higher and holier ways. And we wear our garment as a constant reminder to those covenants that we've made. The only time really it should be taken off is for bathing or swimming or other activities where it's just not real feasible to be wearing. But for the most part, we wear it day and night. Sometimes we joke about it, right? That well, I'm even going to wear it when I take a shower, right? And maybe there are some people that do that. I'm sure we could find some crazy stories out there. But generally speaking, the Lord doesn't expect us to be unreasonable about things. And I mean, I have mine on, right now. It's always on underneath. And as uncomfortable as they might sometimes be, especially on a super hot day, I personally believe the benefits of wearing them far outweigh any potential downside. So, I have no issues wearing mine. But I know some people do, and for various reasons. I mean, there's health reasons. Some people have skin issues. Luckily, we do have a lot of selections of materials and things, and the church has really done a good job of trying to make these as comfortable as possible for people. But but you're always, especially as the church is getting bigger and bigger, and we're up getting close to 20 million members. You're gonna have members that it just they'll have allergies or whatnot. And we need to be understandable to those that have issues as well. So on the garment are four sacred marks, and so over the right breast is the square. So it's just those know what a square is, just basically an L, and it represents exactness and honor. It reminds the wearer to deal squarely with God and fellow man. I mean, that's what it means to be square. To be honest and keep your commitments. Basically, a man who is square is a trustworthy man, and maybe you've heard people use this term before. And so that's basically what that one means. On the left breast is the compass, which kind of looks like a V, if you know what a compass symbol looks like. It symbolizes direction and boundaries, and reminds the wearer to always stay within the bounds the Lord has set, and to always walk in his ways. It's easy to remember what it means if you think of a compass as something that gives direction or that points the way. So we too are to follow that path and to follow Christ's ways and teachings. On the belly button is what's called the navel mark. It's just a line. It signifies strength in life. Trying to think here. It calls to the mind the need for spiritual nourishment and constant flow of revelation and vitality from God. Just as our mothers nourished us in the womb through our navel, the Lord also nourishes us through our navel, spiritually through our navel. So I find this one especially fascinating because we need temporal nourishment to survive, right? We'll die without it. Yet too often we dismiss our need for spiritual nourishment, but we definitely need it, and we will spiritually die without it. So it's definitely important, maybe even more important than our temporal nourishment, So finally, the last mark we have is on our right above our knee. It's called the knee mark, and it symbolizes humility and prayer, and reminds us that every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus is the Christ. So that's what the garment is, and it just reminds us of those covenants as we wear them. So, what about this shifting standard now? So, let's go back all the way back to the 1840s, when the garments first came out. They were like a giant onesie, like big giant onesie pajamas. Um, I can imagine how uncomfortable those were. And they lasted all the way up till, way into close to the end of the 1900s. By the end of the 1800s, they started having different cloth selection, but it was still that giant onesie. In the early 1900s, that onesie started having shorter sleeves. So we start seeing our first kind of shift in standard there. And then for most of the 1900s, it remained the same. And then in the 1970s, um, we finally got our two-piece garment sets. Um, I will say that even to this day, some of the older generation still wears the onesie one. That's still what they prefer, and that's okay. That's the thing with these is you kind of have your agency to choose how modest you want to be, regardless of what the standard that has been set is. So after the 1980s, we start seeing different style neck cuts, like crew necks or V necks. Start seeing some more coming out that are related to maternity, and just various other styles that come out. But the length was still the same on them up to that point. And then in the 2010s, we got even uh, more selections of cloth, more styles that came out. Still the same length and whatnot. But now, just recently, we had another change here in the 2020s now, and this has actually shortened the garment considerably, and changed it to what many yesterday would have called immodest. But is it immodest? That's the question we have to ask here. You see, I think there's a little bit of a disconnect on what the garments are for. Their purpose isn't to remind us to be perfect, because that's an impossible standard for us. But it is to remind us to be a little more holy and live a little higher than the rest of the world. So remember, perfection is a journey, and the world has to start somewhere. So as the world becomes more and more immodest, if we attempted to force members to adhere to the 1800s standard, um, it just not only does it become infeasible, but could lead many members to just simply choose to not wear them, right? If the church is asking this very hard standard, many members will just say, it's just not worth it. So what the church does is they just set it a little bit higher, right? And the garment standard is and always has been to just be a little more modest than whatever the world considers modest. I've been known to argue that if the whole world, if the standard was naked, right, if the standard was no clothes at all, then the garment standard would probably just be like a little tiny piece of cloth or something that you would wear that would just protect your private parts, right? That would be almost naked, just enough to set us a little bit apart from the rest of the world. Um, and the point of us embracing them is to show not the world, but to show God that we don't want to be of the world, but we want to rise above it. And to those who think that the current standard is too immodest, did you know that you can mummify yourself all you want? I mean, you can be as modest as you please. You can wrap yourself from head to toe. We don't care. If that's what you want to do it. But let's be careful not to condemn or judge others who might not be up to your standard yet. And just as the word of wisdom was given as a standard, what do they say? It was a standard that the least of us might be able to adhere to, something like that. I don't remember the exact wording. But so too is the garment standard. You can hold yourself to whatever standard you want. Just know that the Lord has set a minimum bar, and that's where our newer converts will be starting at. They'll be coming in out of the world. They'll be coming from very immodest standards, and so the church doesn't want to say, okay, you want to be baptized, now you have to mummify yourself. Like, who would be baptized if that happened? Like, who would go get their endowments if it meant they were going to just be so miserable and uncomfortable every day? And so the Lord understands these things. And so that's why the standard changes. Really, the standard doesn't change. The standard is to be a little more modest than what the world is. And so as the world changes, that means that our standard changes as well. But the bottom line is that it's a covenant between us and God, and that's really what it is. It's do you want to show God that you are willing to honor your covenants? And that's why we wear the garment. So I hope this helped answer a little bit of questions of why the garment standard changes and why modesty standards change. It's really driven by what the standard of the world is. And the Lord wants to be there to pluck people out of that world and get them set on the right path. And maybe at the end of that path is being mummified. I don't know. Uh, I know I have not been asked to do that. And so I don't know anybody else who has. I want to thank you guys for watching these videos, and thank God for giving me the spirit of understanding to be able to understand these things. And I hope that He is, I hope He has given me, some good intelligence to help explain these things to other people. And I have a lot of people that say I do have a way of helping people understand things, but then there's definitely other people that hate me, right? And there's a lot of hatred online. But yeah, definitely want to thank you guys and thank God. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Have a good day.